Welcome back to the TM Podcast. Today I'm going to talk about the Menendez brothers. But before I start, I'm seeing online where someone has confessed to the Teresa Halbach murder in Wisconsin. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Teresa was the victim of a case in Wisconsin that got national attention because of the Netflix series Making a Murderer. The series highlighted the suspect Stephen Avery and his appeals to his guilty conviction. Stephen is still in prison for the murder as of now, but depending on the specifics of the confession, we may see him walk again. If he does and it's determined that he's actually innocent, it's going to be huge. I'm curious on what you guys think about that case. The whole world seems torn on whether or not he was guilty. We'll see what comes out of the alleged confession in the coming days, and I'm sure. But anyways, Joseph Lyle Menendez was born January 10th, 1968, and Erik Galen Menendez was born November 27th, 1970. They were the sons of Jose and Mary Menendez. Their parents met when they were enrolled in college at Southern Illinois University. When Lyle was born, his mother quit her job and the family moved to New Jersey. They stayed there for a while, but Jose's job eventually moved them to Calabasas, California in 1986. For reference, Calabasas is the rich neighborhood where Drake, the Kardashians, and Will Smith live, so obviously the Menendez family was doing great financially. By the time they moved to Beverly Hills, their estimated net worth was over $10 million. Young Erik was doing okay with his grades and, interestingly enough, was apparently badass at tennis. He ranked 44th in the United States for tennis players under the age of 18. Don't ask me how those rankings are made, but it is interesting regardless. Lyle enrolled in Princeton, but he got in a little trouble for plagiarism and attendance. From the outside, everything seemed pretty normal, and I'm sure people envied the family in a general sense without knowing what was to come. But on the evening of August 20th, 1989, Beverly Hills Police Department received this phone call.
Beverly Hills Emergency?
Yes, police.
What's the problem? What's the problem? What's the problem?
Someone killed my parents.
Pardon me?
Someone killed my parents.
What? Who? Are they still there?
Yes.
The people...
No.
Were they shot?
Hey, man,
Were they shot?
Yes.
They were shot?
Yes.
102 response, 722 North Elmont.
What happened? Hey, stand up,
I have a hysterical person on. We're trying to get things further. Other units responding. Is the person still there?
What happened? We have units around. What happened? Who shot who?
I don't hear anything. I just came home.
You came home and found who shot?
Mom and Dad. You know if they're still in the house, the people that did the shooting.
Get away from him. Okay. Hey, let me talk to Erik. Who is the person that was shot?
My mom and my dad.
Your mom and dad?
My mom and my dad.
Okay, hold on a second. Okay, we're on our way over there with the ambulance.
Okay, I gotta go.
Okay.
Oh.
Hello, this is police department.
Yes.
Okay, I want you to come outside. Okay, just come out the front door and
my brother.
What you're hearing is the Menendez brothers telling the dispatcher that someone has killed their parents. When police arrived, they told them they had no idea what happened. They said they were at the movies and they came home and found their parents had been shot to death. The police had no reason to believe at the time that the brothers had anything to do with it, as they were so upset and it seemed to be truthful, and why would they kill their parents? Other than some brief initial questioning, they really did not pursue the option of their involvement in the murders. The police investigated any leads that they could, searching for anyone who would have any reason at all to kill Jose and Mary. They even looked into the mob, but had no luck. Everything seemed to go cold until they realized what the Menendez brothers had been doing while they were trying to find the people responsible for the killings. Immediately after the death of their parents, they had started spending money like it was nothing, buying clothes and cars and even businesses. Some of those purchases include thousands of dollars in clothes, new Rolex watches, a brand new Porsche Carrera, an entire cafe, a buffalo wing restaurant, and a full-time tennis coach. They went on overseas trips to the Caribbean and London, dining lavishly every single day. It's estimated that during the time between their parents' deaths and mid-1990, they spent over $700,000. Their most notable expense was getting front row tickets to a New York Knicks game sometime between the murders and being arrested. They were captured in the background of a photograph that would later go on to be printed as player Mark Jackson's card for the next year. I'll include that picture in my post. The police took note and recruited one of their own friends, Craig, to wear a wire and have lunch with Erik. He asked Erik, "Did you kill your parents?" To which he obviously replied no initially. But in a weird stroke of luck, the psychiatrist of Lyle had been having an affair. That in itself doesn't seem relevant, but the psychiatrist broke up with his mistress, and shortly after he did that, she went to the police. She told police that the psychiatrist had let her hear tapes of Lyle confessing to the murder of his parents. They arrested Lyle Menendez on March 8, 1990, and Erik turned himself in a few days later after he returned from Israel. It was discovered after their confessions that the brothers actually purchased the shotguns used in the murders days before with someone else's ID. They also learned that on that night, they walked up behind their parents who were sitting on the couch watching a movie and just started shooting at Jose and Mary with the 12-gauge Mossbergs they had bought. Jose was shot in the back of the head and killed instantly, almost completely being decapitated by the shotgun blast. Mary somehow wasn't initially killed and tried running. It's said that they ran out of ammunition and had to go back to their car to get more. When they returned, they shot Mary in the face, then proceeded to shoot her in the chest and both of their parents in the knees. They say that that specific element was done intentionally to try to make it look as if it was some sort of mob hit. After they murdered their parents, they threw the shotguns in the trunk of a car and went to the movies to create an alibi, then returned later and made that 911 call you heard just a little bit earlier. Some other key elements that were discovered were, before their deaths, Jose and Mary had both had plans to edit their will to leave the boys little to nothing in the event of their death. A friend told police that he had been told the brothers even deleted their updated wills from their computers before the murders. Also, even creepier, Erik had written a 66-page screenplay that he had titled Friends, in which the main character was a son of a wealthy family who killed his parents. So, after this, tons of things come out about how the life of the Menendez family really was. The brothers say Jose was violently abusive, physically and sexually, claiming they had been molested since they were very young. A family member helped confirm that he had known that the sexual assault was happening. They also said that Mary was basically bipolar and would go off at any moment in fits of rage. They also said that she was an out-of-control alcoholic. It was discovered that the brothers would act out by burglarizing Calabasas homes when their parents would do things to them. The reason this wasn't previously known was because Jose would go to the families that they stole from and basically pay them off so that they wouldn't report the crime. In the initial trials, which were separate for each brother, their lawyer tried to use the years of abuse as leverage towards a more lenient sentencing, claiming that they had feared for their life in an ever-escalating, violently unpredictable household. The jury of the first trials were pretty much split evenly due to the media coverage of the situation getting out of hand. The judge ordered a retrial due to the deadlocked juries. In the second trial, the judge did not allow cameras in the courtroom and also did not allow the testimony of the sexual assault claims to be used. Without that being an element of the trial, the jury found both brothers guilty for first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder. They were sentenced to life without parole in separate prisons. The jury decided that the murder was not out of fear but carried out to acquire the wealth that they left behind, which seems pretty obvious based on their immediate actions following the murders. They both filed motions for mistrial, but they did not get their wishes granted and were thrown in prison. The brothers were devastated that they couldn't be together and wrote each other letters constantly. They even played chess with each other by sending their moves in the mail, somehow finding a way to make chess even more boring than it already is. They filed several appeals that were all denied. And believe it or not, both of these guys got married in prison to some females that wrote them letters. I'm not even going to say their names because I really feel like that is attention seeking on a mental disorder level. I will never understand it. But anyways, in 2018, the brothers were allowed to be held in the same prison for the remainder of their sentence and are now living happily ever after in a prison while still corresponding with their delusional wives. At the end of it, you can look at this case in a few ways. You can side with their defense in believing that the boys were driven to murder based on years of psychological, physical, and sexual abuse. But keep in mind, they were old enough to move out at the time of these murders. You could say that, like a very large majority of abuse victims, they weren't able to think clearly due to the shaping of their minds throughout the years of abuse. What hurts them the most in this viewpoint, though, is that they planned this one and lied so hard about it. The premeditation is impossible to argue with. Any jury will agree that having the freedom and ability to go out, buy guns, meticulously plan, go to the movies, kill your parents while they're watching TV doesn't really scream, we are trapped in this situation with no foreseeable escape. Another way to look at this is the way that most people do. They planned and killed their parents in cold blood to secure their financial future. Personally, that's the one that makes the most sense to me. The use of the money immediately after, on top of deleting the updated wills, makes it pretty open and shut, in my opinion. But what do you think? Let me know your thoughts in the comments of the posts on this episode or message me directly. If you'd like to decide what the next episode is or just support the growth of the show, be sure to head over to patreon.com/thetmpodcast and become a patron. Be sure to like, subscribe, and follow the podcast page on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and please tell your friends about it. Thank you for listening to the TM Podcast.